Last year I saw a bunch of articles about how A24 is now a billion-dollar company, and I'm both very skeptical and excited. But let's look deeper. A24 is an independently owned studio started by 3 guys with a crazy idea. They started getting traction by distributing smaller films, but it wasn't until 2016 where they started to get hit after hit, and the thing that pushed them over the edge was Moonlight winning Best Picture.
Damien Chazelle, we're standing on your shoulders. We lost, by the way, but, you know.
Then The Florida Project in 2017, A Ghost Story, Hereditary in 2018, Midsommar in 2019, and so on. If you sit down and watch these movies, these early A24 movies, one thing is clear. They don't play by the rules. See, A24 thrived on empowering the creatives. Because of major successes like Moonlight and Hereditary, both of which having smaller budgets, they were able to let the directors thrive and make the movies that they wanted. They saw success in that strategy. These late 2010s movies from them showed a real fire, a want to be seen. Lady Bird, First Reformed, and them even distributing Climax in the US, all of them felt like they said yes to pretty much everything. They had a stacked lineup, and as they started getting more and more awards, the company grew, and as things opened like the merch store, the community only grew, pandering to these people who took film seriously. This was around the time that people were seeing Infinity War and Endgame, so brand loyalty was at an all-time high. 2020, Minari, which got nominated for Best Picture. 2021, The Green Knight being my first live introduction to the company. See, when I was getting ready to go to film school, I was looking for more films to expand my palette and taste. I found A24 with Hereditary and watched Midsommar, and A Ghost Story to prepare. I even saw The Green Knight in theaters and took all my friends, and I was the only one who enjoyed it. The Green Knight was a very strange movie, stylized, confident, and very forward-thinking, and it's not for everybody, but it catapulted the company that produced it into something that I could genuinely get excited for each new release. Every movie was always something to look forward to, but the 2020s were not everything I envisioned would happen for the company. See, in 2022, Everything Everywhere All at Once released, and I was one of the first people who got to see it, with a Q&A from the producers and some of the cast. It was one of my favorite theater experiences, and I was super excited, because I thought the movie was incredible too. Now, I'm not one of those people who are like, oh, it's overplayed. I actually hated the movie when it came out. I didn't, and I still think it's phenomenal. But that was a big shift for the company. See, Everything Everywhere winning so many awards at the Oscars sprung the company to make more interesting business decisions. The movie was a big hit, so they started adding perks to the memberships, like free movie tickets, a line of movie chocolates, their own Blu-ray line, screenplay books, pins, shirts, a music label, and much, much more. Not that expanding is a bad thing, far from it, but all of this gets in the way of what started the company. I can buy as many TV Glow shirts as I want, but I prefer to actually see the movies. With the movie Civil War being the highest budget movie of theirs, it turned them into trying to appeal to more people, which again isn't a bad thing. They are still giving their creators complete control, but I just don't really like being loyal to them anymore. A few years ago, around the time of Anora's release, I was talking with a friend, and then he looked me dead in the eyes and said, I think I'm starting to prefer Neon to A24 now, which is an insane statement because Anora, yes, is a great movie, but why are we being loyal to brands and companies? Yes, they make good movies, but Anora is directed by Sean Baker, who has also worked with A24 in the past. I found that it's much more interesting to be loyal to artists that make the movies rather than the companies that fund them. Robert Eggers got to start doing A24 movies, but is now doing high-budget horror films like Nosferatu. The creativity is still around, but now that some of them have left A24, they're able to get more into the mainstream. A24 giving them full control is amazing, and more companies should do that, but just because they made some good decisions here and there doesn't mean we should glaze. There are so many problems with A24 as a company, but we look past them because they made Hereditary 8 years ago. One of my favorite filmmakers working right now is Jane Schoenbrunn, and they made their movie I Saw the TV Glow with A24. They are now working with Mubi for the next film, Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma. Incredible title. It looks great. I can't wait to watch it because I would support Jane Schoenbrunn even if they directed a Marvel movie. I like their movies. Cut and dry, plain and simple. I'm not going to be loyal to A24 just because they made a really good movie. I'm going to be loyal to the person that directed it, who made it. Think of it like this. If your favorite music artist switched music labels, would you only listen to stuff from their old label or would you move on to this new label? I think you would follow the artist. The loyalty that fans have for people like Taylor Swift, for example, is insane. They will follow her to the ends of the earth to listen to her next album, even if it was distributed by Griselda. I think we should treat directors and filmmakers like music artists. If I like a Marvel movie directed by James Gunn, I would probably like a DC movie directed by him too. We should not be loyal to these billion-dollar companies. So why are people loyal to A24? Because they like their movies. So why not support the creatives who made the movie rather than the faceless studio that gave a thumbs up to make it? I love A24 movies, don't get me wrong. A lot of them define the 2010s and 2020s, but as far as them being a billion-dollar company, I'm just more concerned than anything. Not really for their movies. I think if they show signs of doing something different with the movies, the fans will lose it, but more for their business. As a business, you need to make more money every quarter, and them doing all they can to make that happen is concerning, but at the end of the day, they are a business. When you operate at at that high of a level, it is scary, because one slip and you can lose it all. It's nice to see an independent studio get so successful in doing stuff like this, but it really depends on how they handle the success that determines the faithfulness of fans like me. If they stick to what they know and keep empowering filmmakers, I think they'll be just fine at the end of the day.